Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with another episode of Too Powerful for the MCU, and this time we're covering the Annihilators. Now, the Annihilators are probably the most powerful team to ever exist in the history of Marvel Comics, if I'm being honest with you guys. Like, just all around, pound for pound, the most powerful team. And the funny thing about it is I think at its peak, it consisted of like 5 or 6 people. But like the wholesale iteration of the Annihilators consisted of Beta Ray Bill, the Silver Surfer, Icon, who was a Galadorian Space Knight, basically just like a space robot, Gladiator from the Shi'ar Empire, Quasar, Wendell Vaughn, and Ronan the Accuser. This team was broken. It was so overpowered, it wasn't even funny. It was so OP, Marvel created it and then disbanded it within like the same story. Because they're like, how do we tell stories about this team? Like this is ridiculous. Like they had a short-lived comic, but there was no real way to tell a story with a team like this that was just so ridiculously overpowered. To give you guys some perspective on what this team is capable of, at any point in time, one or more of its members have been shown to do the following things: tear apart black holes, like crush gravity wells, super strength with no upper limit. Basically, they just keep getting stronger and stronger like the Incredible Hulk. Invulnerability, they could take out Hyperion in one shot. We know that's a big deal because Hyperion held 2 universes apart. They can manipulate cosmic energy, they can manipulate life energy, they can time travel, they can create impenetrable force fields, and the only people who can get past it are people who can warp reality. They can travel faster than light, they have cosmic awareness, so they know everything that's going on in the universe at any particular point in time. They can make themselves intangible, they have astral projection, telepathy on a universal scale, meaning they can read the minds of anybody no matter where they are in the universe, and they have beyond Omega level telekinesis. To give you a perspective of what that means, Strife is a guy that has Omega level telekinesis, and he shook the moon. This team is ridiculously broken. It's nuts. I don't understand. Like it's one of these things where you just don't really understand why they exist in the first place. Right? These guys are just so incredibly OP. And so the entire basis behind the Annihilators team came out during the events of Thanos Imperative. The team was formed by Cosmo, the cosmonaut dog, right? The space dog. Probably the coolest enemy they had was the Universal Church of Truth. But they also had an enemy in the form of like Thanos, right? Blastar from the Negative Zone. They had some cool foes. But the idea was that the team was composed to be an extension of Star-Lord's Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Where Star-Lord had himself Rocket Raccoon, he had Groot, he had, I want to say that it was Drax the Destroyer and it was Gamora. I know they were part of it. I don't think Mantis was really part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Really, like the original roster was kind of funky until you got to the release of the movie, and then you basically got Bendis's run, and that was the Guardians from the film, basically all kind of thrown onto a singular team. The idea is that this team was designed to be an extension of that where the Guardians of the Galaxy were a relatively powerful team that they really couldn't do at all, right? Not even remotely close, to be honest. I mean, they were woefully underpowered considering most of the universal threats that exist out there. And so Cosmo ended up creating this team during the Thanos Imperative as an extension of that, to be the heavy hitters, right? So it's like the Avengers and then like Blue Marvel's multiversal Avengers. Blue Marvel, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Spectrum. Who else was there? I think Connor Sims, Ant-Man was part of that team at one point. Dude, you want to talk about broken? Dude, Ant-Man is so broken. It's ridiculous. The guy managed to take out the Mighty Avengers like that. Like literally, when I say take out the Mighty Avengers, I mean like the Sentry and like Ares, the god of war, right? Who's more or less on par with Thor, depending on who's writing the story. This guy overpowered that team. And if the fight had gone on any longer, like they would have died, you know, and it was nuts, right? It was crazy. He was really beefed up. And then he became a Herald of Galactus later on. Dude, this guy managed to leave the multiverse and enter exospace. It was nuts. Connor Sims was stupidly overpowered. We need to do a video on him, right? Like too powerful for the MCU. Ant-Man. That guy would show up in the MCU and just like that, right? Like Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and all that kind of stuff. Connor Sims would be like, ah, and then like that'd be the end of that fight. That fight would be 3 seconds long. Like it wouldn't even be a contest. But nonetheless, the Annihilators, it was kind of crazy, right? Like with the Annihilators and all the power they had, it was sort of nuts because when you're talking about the MCU, it's what we always talk about in this series, right? Like you're talking about grounded characters. You're talking about characters and it's like the world outside your window. This team is so wildly extreme. There'd be no real conceivable means of defeating them for any of the Avengers. The only way to make it work would be for them to either get the Infinity Gauntlet, and even then it probably wouldn't work, or to bring in somebody like Galactus, right? Some massive heavy hitter. I mean, here's the important thing to understand. When it comes to this team overall, I would say pound for pound, Silver Surfer is probably the most powerful out of all of them. He's a guy who's more or less done it all, right? I mean, he's had all these wild abilities and they've kind of waxed and waned over the years. But when you're channeling the power cosmic, which is just a plot device for why Galactus can just do the crazy things that he can, then there really is no limit to what it is that you can do. But you also have guys like Gladiator. Gladiator is one of the many allegories from Marvel Comics that's based on Superman, right? You've got Hyperion, you've got Sentry, you got a handful of these guys. But Gladiator was a guy whose strength and his abilities were relative to his confidence. If he was fighting a foe like the Incredible Hulk, and the Incredible Hulk just kept getting stronger and stronger, right? Let's say, for example, because he's fought and defeated the Incredible Hulk before, but let's say we're talking about like World Breaker Hulk. Gladiator shows up on Earth in the midst of the World War Hulk event or something like that. He starts getting into a fight with World Breaker Hulk, and World Breaker Hulk starts to overpower him. His confidence will start to wane. And when that happens, his powers will start to decrease. So there's an out for his character right there. Ron and the Accusers, I mean, he's interesting enough, but he's just got like a really strong hammer is really all it is, right? The real meat and potatoes of this come down to people like Beta Ray Bill, who can use Thor's hammer. That's kind of a caveat. And he has his own in the form of Stormbreaker. You've got Quasar Wendell Vaughn, right? And using the quantum band, the quantum bands, he can do stuff like open portals like wormholes in space-time, right? So like teleport from one side of the universe to the other. If I'm being honest, I think the Negabands are a lot more powerful in terms of what they can do, but these guys are by no means anything to scoff at. To give you guys perspective, if the Annihilators existed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe during the events of Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and they were even a fraction of the power they had in Marvel Comics, they would have overpowered Thanos so fast. Like, it would not have been any real contest whatsoever. The Reality Stone may have been enough in order to kind of bend things in his favor, but when you're talking about guys like Silver Surfer who can already manipulate reality, even if not on a universal scale, because in Marvel Comics, the Silver Surfer is nowhere near as powerful as the Infinity Gauntlet, right? I mean, there's a massive gap between these two things. But when you talk about the Infinity Gauntlet in the MCU versus Silver Surfer in the comics, then it becomes a whole different game. But the Reality Stone would be something that could kind of bend reality, sort of trick them, manipulate them a little bit. But in the end, they'd be able to somehow see through it, right? Whether it was Ron and the Accuser, whether it was Wendell Vaughn using the quantum bands, or possibly even Beta Ray Bill or Silver Surfer, Gladiator and Icon wouldn't really be able to do a whole lot in that regard. But you're talking about guys who could overpower Thanos or at least see past the illusions. If we're talking about a straight up fight between Thanos and the MCU and like the Annihilators and even all the forces of Thanos, right? So like the Cull Obsidian, so Ebony Maw, Supergiant, all that kind of stuff, they would get demolished. Like literally the Annihilators would just mop the floor with them. And that's what's so crazy about this. With a team this powerful, with a team this capable, it can't work. And it sucks to say that because I mean, you could scale them down, right? You could scale the Annihilators down in power and make it like most everything else in the MCU, in which case they're the Annihilators in name only. I mean, you're talking about a team so powerful, Marvel ended their story because they couldn't make comics, they couldn't make compelling stories with them because they could do pretty much anything. You scale that power level down, you throw it in the MCU, it's a fraction of its comic book counterpart, and it's more or less just a symbolic gesture, right? It's just like, hey, you guys like the Annihilators in comics, now they're in the MCU. They wouldn't really serve any useful purpose because their useful purpose was to be overpowered. But the fact that that useful purpose is gone now means that there is no basis, there is nothing really doing there. They're just guys who were there and they can do some stuff. Cool story, bro. And that's basically it. So you can't really put them in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and expect something compelling to happen, but it would be cool to see, right? It is a cool concept, and I would love to see what kind of form it would take later on down the road, right? But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. I know it's kind of rambly, right? I know it's kind of rambly and going on, but these too powerful for the MCU videos, these are my videos, these are my favorite videos where we just like ramble about why characters and teams are just too OP. Let me know if you guys want to see a video on Ant-Man Connor Sims. Let me know if you guys want to see that. I'm kind of curious. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.